All right, good morning, everybody. We're going to give just a few seconds here to let everybody log into the room from the lobby so we can get started this morning. All right, it looks like most people are in from the lobby now. So good morning, everybody. My name is Cale Harbor. I'm the product manager here at Advanced Control Solutions. Thank you for joining us today. Today's topic, we're going to be covering REST API commands to a MIR robot, taking advantage of Python scripting for this. So this is going to be a little different from some of our other recent webinars that we have been doing. Some of the other events that we've had have been more introductory or an overview. This is going to be a much deeper dive. So we are going to be going into Python programming. So the prerequisite, or not prerequisite, but the assumption is that everyone attending has had some knowledge of some level of programming language work, because this is not going to be an introductory. We're going to be getting into the actual syntax of the command structure and what a REST API header is and how it gets used to be able to interact really with any device that is REST API capable. Specifically today, we're going to be working with the industrial robot from MIR, Mobile Industrial Robots, on one of their mobile units. So presenting for us this morning is one of our automation specialists, Mr. Jared Miller. He's going to be taking us through the step-by-step involved in how to get communications established and the basic command structure to get and push data to the robot accordingly. I'll be monitoring the event, and I'm going to be keeping up with the chat room. If any of you have a question that comes up during the event, please post it to the chat. I'll be watching it and helping to feed those questions to Jared to make sure that we get everybody's information answered that we can. So, Jared, I think that's it for the housekeeping. Are you ready to get started?
I'm all ready. Thank you, Cale.
It's all yours.
All right. Good morning, everybody. So just to start things off, I wanted to show you guys a little something here, this window, and mainly just to show that what we're doing today can be used and be put into more of a GUI interface. So what I have here is just a play, or a pause and a play, and then a delete queue. So I can pause the robot. You can come over here. You can see the robot's paused. And then I can play the robot, and I can go to my mission. So right now I have a filter where I can basically add a filter to all my missions, filter out the missions that I want, and then I can put the robot on a charge mission. See, the robot's moving back. It's moving, and it is in fact moving right here. So I just wanted to show you guys first off that you can create a GUI. Today we'll be using Python. You can obviously use any type of coding language you're familiar with, whether that's C++, C#, Python. I believe it is capable in MATLAB. We've also incorporated with Opto22, so we'll be using that. Opto22 can send API commands as well. So now we're going to be just getting into more of the Python side of it. So we're going to come over here and we're going to start with a clean slate. And feel free to ask any questions. I will try my best to answer them if they are more Python-centered questions. I am relatively new to Python, kind of getting that REST GUI that I showed earlier was my first big step in Python. So I know a decent amount of Python, but I am no Python expert. So first in our REST commands, we're just going to talk about the structure of a REST command. So we have 3 different types of REST commands for the MIR. We have a GET request, we have a POST request, and a DELETE request. So for the GET request, all you'll need is your correctly formatted URL, which we're going to get into, and just a live connection with the actual robot. So that's what we're going to get started with first. So is our GET request. So what we need to first is properly format our URL. So from here, I'm going to call it host, and we have our URL, and then we're going to have our IP address of the robot. I just have this separately so that it's easier to change if you want to go from one robot to another robot. Also, if you have multiple robots in your facility, then you can obviously easily change it. You can even make it a, oops, I forgot to make that a string. So we are making our IP address and host URL a string. I forgot to mention that. So I like having it as the IP as a variable just because it makes it easier to change. And then we have our API address for the MIR. And this is all available. I got all of this information on the API documentation on the MIR, which I will show you guys in a little bit. So now we are ready to move on. Something very important I forgot, however, is we'll call them modules we need to import. So we're going to import the request modules, and then we're also going to import the JSON. This is going to be used the JSON is going to be used to format or what we're receiving from the MIR so we can easily edit it and manipulate it to how we want. The request is going to be doing all the work using the GET commands. So now we are ready for our actual command. So we're going to come back to the MIR and we're going to go to the API documentation to figure out how to format this. So the username and password for this is just the normal login to the MIR. Once it loads, we have all of our request and the formatting for it. So the MIR has a lot of different API requests that you can submit or send. So today we're going to be doing a GET missions. I'm just going to do a find on that just to make it a little easier to find it. And what we're going to be doing is, depending on the amount of time we have today, is we're going to do a GET mission, and then we're also going to do a post mission from the mission to the mission queue. So just going to come over here, let me exit out of this and open it up. So we have our format for it. So we have our authorization, the accepted language, and then we have our responses. So for 200, that means it passed and correctly received. 400 is going to be a wrong format, and then 404, it's not going to be found. So let's jump back to Python and do our GET request. So I'm gonna call the variable GET missions, and we're going to use the request module, and we're going to call that GET. And we're going to do our host plus the URL for missions. So you see, this is our main URL, and then API, you have the URL right here. So /missions. Come back and add missions. Now I only added missions because I already included the / on the back of the version 2.00 on our host URL. So after that, I'm just going to do a print command and variable. So now I run it and I get a 401. So somewhere along the line, it didn't work. So notice how I just printed it and it just gave me the status of it. So notice how it requires authorization. Some commands don't require authorization, but this one does. So that's something we're going to have to add. So I'm going to come down here and we're going to format our headers. So I believe I forgot an equal sign. So for this, I believe we're creating a dict variable, dictionary variable. So we're going to have to do a content type.
Hey, Jared, we just had a
Yes.
question come in from someone. What software are you using to write your Python script in?
So right now I'm using Spider that is available through Anaconda, and I believe I'm running 3.7.4 right here.
Okay. Is there a fee associated with that software?
That is not, it is free.
Okay.
You can use any other sort of, I believe they're called translators for Python, and it will all be the same. I have my content type, and then I need to include my authorization as well. So type in authorization. And if you are a Python programmer, and from my understanding, the single parentheses and the double mean the same thing, but I just like using single and being fluid throughout my code. That's something that I accidentally missed on that one. So to get the authorization, I don't know if you guys caught it, but if I go back to my API documentation, when I logged in, it changed these items right here. So it gives you a content type, the accept language, your host. You can also use :8080, that is the port for the API, and our authorization. So I'm just going to come over here and copy this and put it into authorization.
Hey, Jared, we had another question come in. We've got someone that's wanting to get the document of the script link for the MIR commands. That list of API scripts, that's just within the help file actually on the MIR robot itself. So you're actually logged onto the MIR robot, gone under the help file built into its GUI interface to get the list of API documentation. Is that available separately as well?
You know, Kale, I'm not quite sure on that. I can follow up with whomever asked, and I'm not looking at the chat right now, but I can follow up, and whether that has it on the MIR distributor portal or not, I'm not quite sure on that.
Okay, so we will have to get back with the answer on that one.
Right.
Another question that came in: what language packages are you using to write your GUI?
So I'll get into that later. Just real quick, I'm using tkinter. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. It's just TKINTR right here.
Is that a command word within Python, or is that the name of the software?
It's a module within Python.
Okay.
It's something you would have to import. So if that ends up being time permitting, I can show how to create a quick one and program a button. But now we're gonna just continue on, and I'm gonna print my headers so you guys can see the format of it, and then I'm also gonna print my get missions. So I print my headers, and I'm still getting the same response. So I must not have formatted something correctly. I didn't add my headers. So I'll have to come here and add my headers. What was headers? So within the request command within request, you have a format of it. So you have your request and you have your URL, and then you have your payload as well as, which is your data. And then you also have your headers. Let's try that again. Okay, so I must have spelled authorization wrong on that. My apologies.
All right, just to let everyone know, I did find the link for the MIR REST API command structure, and I have posted it in the chat for y'all to be able to gain access to.
All right, so I must have spelled authorization wrong. I am doing this live, so my spelling's not the greatest, but now that I've fixed that, you can see I'm getting a response of 200. So I can simplify that down by going and just doing a dot status code on that. So I have my get missions dot status code, and that's going to just give me it as an integer. I'm going to get rid of this print actually, and I can also receive that as a text as well if you wanted to manipulate that as a string. So this is what I'm receiving in this. So the MIR mission is you have your name, and that is going to be what you see. So if I go back to the missions, I have all my missions right here, and what we are seeing is the names. However, we have our GUID as well, and the URL. To post a mission, we'll be using the GUID. You cannot post a mission with just the name, you will also need the GUID on that. Also noticed how there are other missions within the get missions request. I start the missions on the actual MIR with 100 collision avoidance, but then there are other missions that have been added, like let me go to the very top, the send mail, place cart, and charge. And those are just built in within the MIR. So no need to worry about those. So now, once we have our get missions, I'm going to show you guys how to post a mission. So I'm going to cheat and just copy and paste from the GUID. Obviously, if you're going to streamline this, there's other ways that you can go to do that. But because we're just doing this bare bones, I'm just going to copy and paste the GUID. So I'm just going to have my mission ID, and I would like to queue the opto charge mission. So let me just find that really quickly. And there we go. So I'm going to copy the GUID and you need to make sure you have your GUID as well. And I need to put that into something as well. Like that. So this, for example, I mentioned the payload earlier. So this would be our payload. So now we're going to format a post command on this. So I need to change my URL. So get a variable called post mission, and I'm going to do a post dot request or request dot post. I have my post URL, and I'm adding to that mission queue, because we are going to post the mission to the mission queue. And then I have my headers. Actually, sorry about that. We do our payload. So we have in the JSON format. So I have my mission ID equal JSON equals mission ID, and then headers equal to headers.
Hey, Jared, we've had another question come through.
Mm-hmm.
The word JSON, they've seen that not just here, but also within other programming environment. What actually is a JSON?
JSON is a data type. So as you have a string, an integer, or a floating variable type, JSON is another variable type, from what I believe.
Okay, thank you.
So we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to print our post mission. And I'm just going to suppress this. So we have a response of 400, so it's improperly formatted. So let me just real quickly look. It's very likely that I misspelled something as I did previously. Correct. And so I'm going to change this to mission ID. That's how I've done it previously, and it worked. So you need to have this as mission ID and not GUID. And we can come back to our missions, and we can see that we successfully have added opto charge. So that's how to do a GET command or a GET request as well as a POST request. So now what I'm going to do is right now I just have these in my basic code, and what I want to do is I want to put these into functions, and we're going to get into very, very basic creating a little GUI screen and adding a button on it, and when I click the button, I will queue the mission. So what we're going to do is we're going to import the enter. So now we have our GUI screen, and just going to quickly create our window. And I learned all of these things from this GUI from just simple Googling. It's as simple as that. So we're going to format it, and we're going to call it MIR REST commands. And then we're also going to size the window. We'll size it 100 by 150. And I believe these dimensions are in pixels. So now when I run this, I queue it, and I forgot one last thing. And my loop on that. So now I have my GUI window right here. So I haven't programmed anything on that. So the format for that is you add a button and then you attach a function to that button, which is what we're going to do next. So that's why we are going to make these post, and we don't need to get missions in a function because we mainly are looking at this post mission. So I'm going to call my function post missions. We need to input our host and headers. We need those two variables. And now I'm going to create two buttons, or one button. So button 1, it's going to be right here. I'm going to call it button 1. And it's going to be on the window I stated up here. Text is a string, so we're going to call it auto charge because that's the mission that we're queuing. And the function that I want to attach it to is post mission. And then there are different aspects within this button, so I can add a pad around it to give it more definition. I can place it, I can change the color. So I'm just going to place the button. And we're just going to place it at 10 by 10. So now when I loop it, oops, post missions. So now when I loop it, I have my button right here. And I'm going to pull up my mission queue, and as I click on it, I should also see the mission queue change. So on this, I messed something up. So let me just troubleshoot real quick on this. So right now I'm looking at my post missions. So let's just print our post mission status to make sure that it is 200. Or I see that's our error. We have our errors right here. So I need to make sure I have both my inputs and my function. So now I try again, and it queued. So let's go back and make sure that everything's going correctly. All right. Let's suppress that, get missions as well. Should see it come up. Oh. All right, it interrupted. So I've got a couple more buttons on this. So another good one would be a delete the queue. And we will also, so this is going to be another type of request we can do with on the meter. And it's going to be formatted very similar to the get status that we did up here with the get missions. I'm just going to call that function our variable delete. And then we're going to have our request delete. And we're going to have host. And we're going to be deleting from the mission queue. Once again, a string. And we need to add authorization in this as well. And there isn't any data type for it. So now we have a delete queue function. So let's add a button. We can delete the queue as well. And just formatting it the same way I am the button that we just did. Speller when it comes to typing, especially when it's quick. Okay. Equal sign there. All right. And then I'm going to place it just below the other button. So now it should be popping up. Okay, so we're having a connection error with the one MIR, so I'm going to go to our other MIR. Oops, I called it delete queue, not delete mission. And whenever you try to run the program, it will create that many screens. So I tried to run it 3 times and that is what happened. So I'm getting a response of 400 somewhere. So I didn't properly format something correctly. We're going to come over here and see if it is, I believe it is my get queue button that I did not format correctly. Oh, we're using the other one. So we're going to come over here. So there's no missions in the queue. Something that we're going to need to change now is because we're using a different robot, the GUIs, even though they may be the same name of the mission, will be different. But that won't take us any time to change. I'm going to print my mission text. I need to exit out of this. And quickly copy over my new ID. Oops. I have my new ID, and now I'm going to exit out of this window. Okay, it doesn't want to exit out. So I'm going to rerun this. And we're going to come over in the MIR and go to my mission queue. So let me just test it with a mission. So I added a mission on the MIR, and okay, so something is wrong within the GUI. Try getting rid of those. They are pretty important, so I may need them. And that is still running. Okay. So you can see our title here, and then our two buttons. So somewhere along the way, here we go. So okay, we do need those. My mistake.
Authorization code Sergio says.
Ah. Thank you, Sergio. Because I moved from robot to robot, I need to change my authorization. So as I put in distributor, this changed. So now. Okay. And now I don't receive any error on that.
All right. Hey, Jared, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I apologize, folks. My audio got disconnected from my headset. It took me a minute to get back online. So.
Yeah. So normally this is a lot easier of a process. I'm going to come over here to, I set this up yesterday, and this is what I've been referencing to get things running. It is doing the same thing of what I'm trying to do, but so we're also looking at a get status, and then we also have a label, and we have a couple more buttons. So I'm going to run this, and so the MIR seems to be quite unresponsive today. Oh, and
I think you were back on the 100, and wasn't your command yesterday for the 200?
this is on the 100 again.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, one thing I do want to point out, the robots we're using are actually in our live automation lab, and it is available for other people within the company to be able to use. We're physically not in the room with the robots. So one of the things that may be going on is someone else may have taken control of the room while we've been working on this code.
And feel free to ask questions along the way, or I may be oversighting something and there are 13 other people looking at my code right now.
Yeah. Well, that being said, we are coming up towards the end of our time. As you finish this debug, I just do want to post it out again. I did add to the chat window the links for the MIR document for the REST API command structure. And I also put on the links for the MIR Academy to learn more about the programming environment of the MIR. And last week, Jared led us in a webinar on how to do, it was an introductory to MIR programming, basically how to do mapping, best practices, how to create points within the map, and then be able to call a simple mission. So I've also included the link to be able to watch that webinar as an on-demand webinar. And I would highly encourage y'all to take the opportunity to do that and go through the basics of working within the MIR programming environment itself.
So just to show you guys, I don't know what it was, but something came up and I wasn't coding things rightly, but I know this one works. So this is the GUI from the very beginning. I just changed it over real quickly to the 100. And what I'm doing here is, like I was before, I can get all of my missions and I can execute. And right here, I'm just getting, it comes in as a string, so I'm not formatting it at all, which is why sometimes it'll appear different as it did just then, but I'm getting my battery percentage. So instead of copying and pasting the GUID from the mission, I'm in fact filtering them live. So if I just wanted that opto charge mission, I could just come over here and just have that opto charge mission.
All right. Well, just to let everyone know, anytime, this is the most complicated webinar we've done as far as program coding in a live event. And for any of you out there who are programmers, anytime you're writing code with one person looking over your shoulder is hard enough, but with basically 14 of us, including myself, you're going to get some a little bit of delay in getting your syntax just right. So we just had another question come in about, are we going to make the sample code available? We are happy to make the sample code available, but also this entire webinar is going to be posted in our on-demand section. So what I'll do is I'll take the sample code, I will load it up into a text file, and I will place it in the on-demand webinar. Once it goes live on our page, you will be able to re-access the webinar and then download that file. Okay.
Notice that when you do download it, you will need to add these two modules onto your Python as well. And I can input that as a instructional above in a string to let you guys know how to do that if you're not familiar with that.
Yeah. So we had a request come in for share the Python scripting code as well as the link to the MIR simulator so that they can practice. I will look that up and I will email that to you offline and make that available. It's going to take me a minute to look those items up. But again, we're going to post this as an on-demand, and I'll put the file links there as well. So, Jared, was there any last-minute thoughts you wanted to share with the group before we closed out today?
Not that I can think of. When we do upload that script, I'll make sure that it is functional as well.
Yep. And again, that will be in the files section of the uploaded webinar when we put it in our on-demand. But for those of you who've sent me private messages on the chat log, I will email those to you directly as well. Jared, thanks for the time this morning. I appreciate it. I don't see any last-minute questions coming in. So I want to thank everyone for attending today. I hope it was at least a little insightful to let you know that about the world that you can get into with control of these robots beyond just the normal interface, and a little bit about how the URL REST API structure actually works to be able to deploy it within a custom environment. So thank y'all for attending. I'm going to hang out here in the chat room for a little while, and I will be looking up those links to be able to send out. So y'all have a great day. And like I say, I'm going to be monitoring chat room for another minute or so. Thank y'all for attending.
Thank you.